Bully me for my race? Say goodbye to life as you know it. When I was in elementary school, there was a girl who bullied me relentlessly. Her name was Aya. It all started in the first grade. She was an instant popular girl because she talked about her time in Ghana. She was born and raised there up until she was 4 years old when her parents immigrated to America. I thought that was cool because the only immigrants I have ever known were from Mexico because we lived in Texas. I asked her what life was like in Africa. She looked at me and said in a very smug voice, "A lot better than Mexico." I thought that was weird, but I let it go because we were kids at the time and I think she just wanted to be cool or something. As the year went on, she always made offhanded comments about me being Mexican. It wasn't until second grade when we were just learning this brand new word that we have never heard of before, racism. 7-year-old me at the time vaguely understood it because my mom taught me the words that were derogatory towards us. Anyway, we were watching a cartoon about Martin Luther King Jr. and we were at a scene where the protesters were being unjustly arrested. I thought it was cruel and didn't think it was fair. Aya looked at me and shouted, "A beaner like you would never understand." For those who don't know, the word beaner is a slur against Latin people. Sure, it's not as disgusting as the N-word, but it is a disgusting word to people like me and I've been called that a lot of times even back then. I was horrified at being called that in the middle of class. I looked at my teacher who just shrugged her shoulders and went back to the show. I couldn't believe it. We were learning about the civil rights movement and I was called a racial slur in front of everyone. I tried asking my teacher why she didn't say anything because what Aya called me was a bad word towards me and my ethnicity. All she said was, "It's just a word." I ran home in tears and told my mom everything. She was upset at first, but at the time she told me that Aya probably didn't know that that word was a bad word towards Latin people. My mother was wrong. For the next 4 years, Aya would throw racial slurs at me, calling me a beaner who eats nothing but beans or a wetback because I must have crossed the Rio Grande River. I begged her every single time to stop and I went to my teachers pleading with them for help, but they never did anything. It wasn't just the racial slurs she threw at me. She would insult me for the way I looked, the way my hair was, why I was bigger compared to the other girls who were slim. Things got worse in the 4th grade. I was going through a rough time because my mom was dating a man who drank beer as if prohibition ended. He also smoked heavily and the smell will end up on my clothes, which added fuel for Aya's fire. It was when DARE was a big thing back in the day. Aya would always use me as an example about the dangers of smoking, pointing out how the smell was so bad that she constantly plugged her nose every time she walked by me. It led to rumors of me never taking a bath that followed me up until the end of 6th grade. At this time, my mom was starting to realize that Aya was not stopping and she tried contacting the school, but all she would get was that it was just a disagreement between 2 classmates. She wrote notes for me to give to my teachers, but nothing would happen. In the 5th grade, things really took a turn for the worst. My grandfather passed away and his death hurt me so much that even to this day I still feel that raw pain of his passing. Word got out to my school and Aya walked up to me saying how sorry she was that my grandfather was gone. I naively thought that maybe, just maybe, she would stop being a bully and say sorry for saying racist things towards me. Nope. "It's sad that he died to get away from you. I would too if I realized my granddaughter was so ugly." I broke into tears while she and a few of her friends laughed. And as always, none of my teachers did anything to stop her. I told my mom, who managed to finally get a hold of my teacher and demanded that she do something about it or else she was gonna go up there and make her stop. So for the first time in the whole year, my teacher walked up to Aya and told her to stop being so mean to me. I looked at her and burst into tears, crying that she was being mean. "It's because I'm black, isn't it?" Immediately, my stupid teacher backed off. Aya would go on to use that phrase every single time any of our teachers even attempted to do something. Things slowly quieted down when I was in 6th grade, but I was plotting something. I used to draw anime a lot. I left to go to the bathroom and when I came back my drawing was ruined. It had pen marks everywhere with the words beaner and wetback and permanent marker all over it. I was devastated and broke down. I worked so hard on that drawing and it was vandalized with hate. I looked over to a group of desks where Aya was sitting and I saw her laughing. She and a couple of her girlfriends were saying how funny it was that I was crying over a stupid picture. I marched up to her and yelled at her. I demand to know what it is about me that she hates so much. Why was she acting like a racist towards me when I did nothing to her? I was crying and screaming. My teacher told both of us to go to the office. I thought we were finally going to solve the issue, but as always I was wrong. My principal looked at the both of us and said, "I should apologize to Aya." I replied, "What?" "I apologized to A for yelling at her. Just because you're upset doesn't mean you have to yell at a classmate for it." I was in shock, but she ruined my drawing. She wrote slurs all over it. I should point out that she even had permanent marker stains on her hands. "Why aren't you telling her that you don't tolerate racism in this school? Why are you always taking her side?" The principal replied, "I'm not taking sides, young lady, but those are just words. Sticks and stones." I honestly didn't know what to feel at that moment. I realized that Aya was getting away with her racism and there was nothing I could do about it. I still refused to apologize and the principal called my mom, who demanded that the principal do something about Aya, but nothing happened as always. After that incident, Aya was emboldened at the fact that she could get away with the bullying and made my life hell. She destroyed me. It was to the point where I could no longer draw again. Even to this day, if I even try to draw a character I liked, I would break into tears and just stop. My mom tried everything. She pleaded, she demanded and she threatened, but my school just brushed it off as an overprotective single mom who just didn't like seeing her overly sensitive child hurt. In my mom's perspective, from what she told me she watched as her happy-go-lucky little girl slowly morphed into a sad and combative teenager. I developed a hatred towards my own ethnicity and I cried that I wished I was white because I hated being called those words and I hated the way my face looked because I could see my Native American features. That's right, I'm indigenous too. She made me hate myself. It was only after elementary school did the bullying finally stop because she went to a different junior high school. But just because I was able to get away from her didn't mean that the effects of her bullying stopped. I had to go to therapy to get rid of the terrible things she said to me out of my head and slowly regain myself as a person. My family who knew of the bullying gathered around and gave me unconditional love and support. All the while telling me stories of our ancestors who started our family, how they fled Spain during the Texas Revolution. I even went to the tribe I was descended from to help gain a better understanding of my indigenous roots, and they helped me immensely as well. Aya and I ended up going to the same high school, but I avoided her like the plague because I wanted nothing to do with her. Aya was a model student, and during Black History Month, we used to have an assembly where we talked about the great black figures in history. She would always go on the podium and talk about how proud she was of her race and that we should embrace everyone of different race, religion and all that good stuff. It took all of my willpower and constant reminding of myself that what happened in elementary school was in the past to not laugh and roll my eyes. I just thought she was a piece of work. Fast forward to 2021. I was packing up my room because I was getting ready to move some of my stuff to my new house with my then fiancé. I was reading a book on my phone when I got a notification from someone I hadn't seen since high school. It was Aya. I'm an adult now, so instead of feeling the terrible anxiety I would always feel whenever I would get a note from her, I just looked at it annoyed and wondered what the hell did she want and opened it. Apparently, she was hosting our elementary school reunion because the old building was being torn down in place of a new one. She was inviting everyone who went to school there so we could say goodbye to the old girl. Honestly, I didn't want to go because that school has done nothing but bring me grief and anger. Just driving by it over the years would make my heart pound uncomfortably. I wanted to decline, but I thought to myself, that stupid school will be destroyed. And then something sparked in my head. This could be my last chance to expose Aya for what she really was. Aya, no good racist who takes joy in other people's misery. And it wasn't just me she threw racial slurs at. She was like that to everyone. From the girl who was from Delhi to a Chinese student who ended up transferring to a different school because he couldn't take it anymore. The planning. Having dinner with my mom, I asked her if she remembered the girl who used to bully me. She gripped her fork and said that she did remember and how much she hated that girl. I asked her if she remembered going to the school many times to complain about her, and she said yes, and that she had written down everything that was said. And knowing my mom, she never threw anything away because it was important documents. I decided to look into her old files and I found them. It was not only the notes mom took, but it was also full of the hateful messages Aya wrote to me. Even my Sailor Moon drawing that had those terrible racial slurs on it. The terrible feeling of self-hatred and sorrow came back in full. I was close to tears seeing that drawing and those notes. I really wanted to know why she had so much hate in her heart. After calming myself down, I went to work. I printed copies of the notes along with a note from my principal which said it seems that Aya used nasty words based on her ethnicity. It was even signed by that principal, which proved two things. Aya was a racist and the school knew but refused to do anything. The little party was basically a barbecue on the school playground. I showed up in casual clothing and saw my old classmates for the first time in years. To say the least, I was the only one who still looked fresh-faced and not worn down by parenthood. I did catch up to a few of them. Most of them were actually Aya's victims, but unlike me they ignored her when she would bully them. Looking around, I actually saw some known members of our local equal rights group. I assumed she invited them because Aya made a name for herself over the years since graduation. It almost made me feel sorry for what I was going to do. And when I mean almost, I mean never. The little barbecue went by smoothly and Aya was talking about the beautiful memories she had at our old school. And that she was so thankful that they welcomed her with open arms because she was an immigrant from a faraway country and was worried of not being able to belong. I remembered how proud she was when she first walked in our class, no fear at all. After her passionate farewell speech, everyone in our class took turns saying their own farewells. When it was my turn, I looked around and saw everyone staring at me. Aya is standing there with a confident smile on her face as if she thought that I was so beaten down that I would just say whatever with the school and that's it. But nope. Over the years since graduation, I sort of developed a I don't give a attitude. I say what I say and I will do a microphone drop if I have to. I talked about how I was so nervous going to the school because it was something new and I knew that it would lead me to a path of adulthood. I talked about how this damn school had brought nothing but nightmares, horrible teachers and a terrible student who bullied me so much that my poor mother had to spend thousands of dollars of her life savings just to give me therapy because I could not function well. I then looked at Aya and said that she was a prime example of the American dream. An immigrant who worked tirelessly to make it in this complicated country. I then said in the same smug tone of voice she had 20 years ago, "I am so glad you grew out of your racism." And with that I stood up and left. And remember what I said about those notes my mom kept? Well, I sent them to that local group anonymously and told them that their star volunteer was not who she was. I just thought that would be the end of it, but I did not know of the absolute storm I caused. Aya's reputation was destroyed. When the leader of the group saw the notes, he was livid. He immediately told her that she was no longer welcomed and said that she was a terrible example for the people they were helping. Her fiancé dumped her, she lost her job, and as it turns out, her parents never knew of the bullying. I guess my principal decided that it wasn't worth calling them years ago. They were angry with her and demanded to know where she got this attitude from. On top of that, my former principal apparently lost a special award she got for her contributions to our school district when the superintendent happened to get an envelope containing my mother's notes, and he was just as livid. I got an apology from the school district along with other victims of Aya. They accepted that just to get it over with, but I politely refused, saying that it was too little too late. I did get comments from my former classmates saying that I should have just let it all go, but here's the thing, I did get over it. I wanted nothing more than to just close that chapter in my life. But seeing her name in that email really triggered something in me, and knowing that she was running around saying things which was opposite of what she really believed. I wanted her to feel broken the same way as I felt.